Hello everyone, welcome to 3dDesignAcademy.com. In this lesson, I'll be continuing with part 2 of the body side of Lexus LF-30. So in the previous lesson, I spent some time setting up the primary surfaces, so I'm going to continue on with that. So if you look at this picture over here, you'll see that this shape continues on, so I should probably put some surface there. So let's go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a rail. It's going to be 1 and 1. I'm going to set this as a gen. I'm going to set this as a rail like this. Now I'm just going to use a curve segment and make sure that this is beginning where it should be. And I think that's okay. Now, I don't think I need to make sure that everything like fits perfectly for now. I do think there's a little bit of surface transition over here. So I'll probably make sure that that's accounted for, but let's just block it and make sure the primary surfaces work. Okay, so now that's done. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and put a surface over here just to make sure that I have something. So I'm just going to put that over here like this, just using a draft tool, and let's just extend it and see how the spacing is. Okay, so I think that's not too bad. However, I do think that this one is maybe going in a little bit too much. So maybe I'll just pull it out a little bit. I'll have to take a look at the canvas. Actually, you know what? It's not looking horrible. So let's just compare in the perspective view. Let me just go back over. Oh man, you know what? Maybe that's okay. So maybe I'll just leave it like that. Okay, so I think that's looking pretty good. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and set up some surfaces over here. I think it's probably a good idea to put a fillet over here. And I'm just going to go ahead and set up some fillets and see how the transition works. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, actually, let's go ahead and put a fillet there first. So this one should probably be quite generous. So let's go ahead and see what I can do. So I'm just going to grab a surface fillet over here. I'm going to say chord. It's going to be, of course, G2 for the chord length. Let's make it quite big. So let's start with 500. For the form factor, I'm just going to keep it simple and keep it on 1. And let's see how that does. So, okay, so it creates a 500 right here. Actually, I would prefer a form factor 1 just to make it a little bit easier. That's not looking too bad. However, let's see. I think it probably needs to be a little bit bigger than that. So I'm going to go quite bigger. Maybe let's try 1000. So 1000 over here. There we go. It does create it. I think that's probably a good size. So I'm just going to put it over there. And I should probably do the same thing over here. Let's see. And I'm also going to put a fillet over here as well. Now, that's not, however, the surface over here is quite big. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reduce it a little bit. So let's do this. I'm just going to, well, first of all, let's rebuild the gen. And I'm going to just do a little bit of curve segment over here. And a little bit over here to, well, let's see. Why is it doing that? Well, if that's the case, I think I'm just going to use a line. So let's go ahead and use a line over here. And let's go ahead and reduce the degree a little bit. And looks like it's still retaining position. Blending, I'm going to just turn the CVs on 1 and 2, blend factor of 0, so that everything moves in unison. And it really doesn't need to be that big. So I'm just going to reduce it like that. And I think that's looking pretty good. Okay, of course, this one needs a fillet too, and that fillet size will be determined by this one over here. I think it's pretty big, but I don't think it's as big as this one. So let's go ahead and put that one in. So, actually, if that's the case, I should probably trim this one too. So let's do this. I'm just going to trim it up to this point just so that it's a nice clean trim somewhat. And for down here, I should probably, well, let's take a look. Where is it supposed to intersect? I think it's supposed to intersect somewhere over here. I think there is a little bit of break over here. So I think it should actually be somewhere over here, which is kind of interesting. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to intersect over here like that, and I'm just going to snap a curve over here like this. And well, I'm not quite, let's see. Not quite sure that's the right area. So what I think what's happening is I think it's starting to break over here, which is I think it's kind of weird, but it's also transitioning over here. So I think there's actually 3 sections. So one body side right here and all for the surface underneath. So let's do that. So I'm just going to snap a curve over here, something like that. And I'm just going to go ahead and project over here. And now I'm just going to trim over here, and I'm just going to make sure that there's no extra spans, which this does. So I think let's clean that up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, let's do this. I'm just going to delete the construction history over here. And I'm going to untrim this one. I'm going to extend it back as to reduce the spans. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm just also going to align this one over here. I'm going to say partial, like that. Okay, and I'm just going to see if I can just reduce it to degree 5, which I think it should work a little bit better. I prefer it that way. And now let's go ahead and extend this back so that I can trim it over here. And I think that's looking good. Okay, so I'm just going to trim. Looks like I don't have a CWS there, so let's go ahead and do that too. Trimmed it, and I'm just going to make sure that everything is positional. Okay, so show max label, show come on, just in case. Okay, so that's positional. That's this one isn't. So it looks like with the, I think there must have been a little shift. It's not super critical. But of course, I can always make it better. So let's go ahead, and I'm just going to intersect over here, intersect this one over here, and I think that should be good. Oh, actually, it does. That one should be this one. All right, so that's looking good. Just trim it there, and looks like there's a surface underneath. There's a slight break. So let's go ahead. Now I'll probably have to also break this one too. Let's see if I can get a view from the rear. Yes, I do see a little break there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to snap a curve over here. And let's just make it a nice clean 2 degrees. Just to pick a CV over here, I'm just going to bend it a little bit this way, and I'm just going to use the stretch tool like this to create a little bit break from this area. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now it is a little bit short, and I think the color, what's going on over here? Oh, that's okay. So if you see this one over here, you'll see that it looks like there is a break, but this is one single surface. So I think that's due to the just a rendering setting. So what you can do is, if you see a break like this, but you know for sure that there shouldn't be a break, what you can do is either decrease the tolerance from 0.01 to maybe 0.001, and there it is, and it's gone. Well, actually, it's kind of still there. So in that case, what you can do is turn that back to 0.01, and you can also do a limit edge length, and there it is. That takes care of it. This is due to a rendering setting. So like games, basically the rendering is done with a bunch of polygons. It's probably a triangle. I'm not quite sure. But if you have a straight surface like this, and if the polygons are too big and too lengthy, sometimes that can cause a little bit of issue there. So what you want to do is just play around with the edge length in order to resolve that. Of course, that's just a rendering setting, so there is nothing wrong with the geometry itself, so I don't really care about, so I'm going to just revert it back. Now, that said, let's go ahead and do this. So right now I do have a little break. However, I'm not quite sure how it's going to interface over here. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to, I don't really need this curve, but I do need a version of it. So I'm just going to do a fit curve over here, and I'm just going to make it a degree 2. Looks like I probably need a little bit more data. So let's make it a 3. That's still not giving me position. So, well, it is giving me position with the settings that I have. So, but let's go ahead and make it a little bit tighter. And I think that's good. So now I'm just going to extend the curve over here. And let's do a rail like this. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. That does give it a little break. And I think the intersection is pretty good. Let's just check. So I'm just going to go ahead and intersect this surface against this one over here. Now, I do see a break over here, so I should probably give a little less break there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reduce the amount of volume here. I'm probably going to pull this out just a little bit so that it extends a little bit more. Like that. I still need a little bit of break. Actually, that's now good. So I think I should, let's do natural. And I'm going to push this inboard so that I still have a break like that. And I should probably do a little bit of rotation over here because right now it's a little bit inconsistent. So giving a little bit of rotation, I still get a break to extend this way. Looks like it's not a perfect match, but for this one, I'm not going to spend too much time refining it. So I would say that's good enough for now. However, I'm going to give it a little bit more break here, just so that I can read it better. So I'm going to pull this back. I think for this one, what should actually happen is I should probably actually push this one a little bit more this way. So that the COS over here continues a little, extends a little bit more. But since this is just a demo, I'm just going to explain by words only and continue just building the theme. All right, that's it. However, I do see a break over here that also needs to be accounted for. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to project over here like this for the second break here. So let's grab a curve. I'm just going to copy and paste. I'm just going to stick it over here and let's go and trim. And now I'm just going to do a little rotation, or you can of course use the stretch tool, whichever you want. I'm just going to do a rail over here like this, and that's good. Rebuild over here, and now this definitely gives a little break, and let's just extend it a little bit. Now I can't extend this, so what I'm going to do, otherwise the history will be deleted. So I'm just going to extend it like this, make this a degree 2, and I'm going to align this piece over here, like that. I'm just going to make it a G2, and I'm going to check where the intersection is. So let's go ahead and intersect it over here and take a look. Now the bottom, it does look like the bottom one should also be trimmed out. But I think the direction, I see the bone line sort of floating this way. So which is a little bit more vertical than what I have right now. So let's go ahead and push this in a little bit more. So I'm just going to go to 4 view and I'm just going to check this one. Okay, I'm just going to push it in Y. I think that's a little bit more like it. I think that's good. Oh, actually, I wonder if this break, I wonder how it's formulated. It could be just trimmed from the side. I don't know if there's supposed to be something else, but I do see a bone line that's a little bit more up and down. So I think I'm just going to keep the bone line over here, but this I will just trim it. Now it's kind of weird how that's not really matching, but whatever. I think that's okay. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to delete this and I'm going to trim everything out. So let's go ahead and extend this piece over here with merge on. So that's good. And I'm going to just extend this piece over here. And I'm also going to extend this piece over here like that. And I'm going to recreate all of those. Okay, there is a little break, but this one I'm not going to worry about too much. I'm just going to leave it like that. Well, just a quick demo. So let's try to simplify things a little bit. So I'm just going to project from the side like that. I'm going to trim this one, and I'm going to trim this one too over here. And now let's go ahead and intersect everything over here and trim it. So this one I'm also going to extend it just a little bit more. And of course I do need to trim that. So I'm going to just snap it over here like that. Use a stretch tool. I think that one's fitting very nicely over here. This one I'm probably just going to do something like that. And this one, let's go ahead and snap it over here. I think that should be good. Okay, so let's go ahead and trim. So I'm just going to grab this one, project over here. This one, I'm going to use these two curves over here to project. Everything is looking pretty good. And let's go ahead and trim. So I'm going to trim that one. I'm going to trim this one. And I'm going to trim this one. And of course, I do need to trim that one too. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to project this one over here. Is there two COSs? Oh, it looks like there is. My mistake. Delete one, and that should allow me to trim over here. Extend that. That's good over here. I'm not quite sure what's going on over here. I don't know if they're supposed to be like a little light catcher or if it's like an under body, but something's going on there. But I think I'm just going to let it be trimmed like this. I think that's okay. And now let's just take care of these two over here. So what I'm going to do is, I think the brake direction is probably parallel. So what I'm going to do is, well, do the same thing. So I'm just going to extend this curve like that. I'm just going to project it over here. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to do a divide so that I have a reference. Okay, so I'm just going to do a rail for this section. So I'm just going to grab this one as a rail like that. It should actually probably be parallel, or should it? I'm going to leave it in natural. Okay, so I should probably leave it in natural because it follows a profile, and just extend and trim. So it's degree 6, and that's okay, but I prefer to clean up a little bit. So let's make it a little bit less. It looks like even 2 and 2 works. Just going to extend it a little bit. I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to project. I'm going to trim it over here. Keep this time. I'm going to do the same thing over here. So I'm just going to pick this as a gen, pick this as a rail. Of course, it looks like it's a little bit longer and position is failing. So let's increase the degree, and looks like this one is actually not fitting. But that's okay. I can always trim it. So I'm just going to, first of all, align it. See if I can reduce the degrees. 3 works. Blending 1, 2. Left vector of 0. And I'm just going to make sure that this one's okay too. Yep, that's good. And let's go ahead and extend it this way over here. And I'm going to extend this one over here. Okay, so now the side profile is a little bit different. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use these two in the project and make sure that they are the same. Okay, so let's go ahead and trim there, and that's good. I don't need this anymore, so I'm just going to trim that. And at least from the side view, it looks pretty good. Of course, the perspective, there's a little break, so it might look a little bit funny depending on the view, but that is okay. All right. So that's looking pretty good. So now I'm going to go ahead and put some fillets on it for, well, I think I'm going to start over here. So let's go ahead and put a fillet over here first. So right now this piece is a little bit big. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and match it. So I'm just going to use this one over here. I'm just going to match it over here. I'm just going to make sure that's still positional like that. And let's go ahead and put a fillet between the two. So let's go ahead and grab a surface fillet over here. It's going to record, it's going to be G2. It is not quite as big as 1000. So I'll start with something a little bit smaller, maybe 300, and see how it is. I think that's actually looking pretty good, but I'm wondering if it needs to actually be a little bit tighter. Now, this is kind of deceiving, I think. I should probably read this one at the bottom. 300, yeah, I think that's actually not a bad size. Oh, it's kind of hard to figure it out, so let's go ahead and put a fillet here first and see how that looks. So I'm just going to grab these 3 surfaces over here. And of course, the fillet going this way does need to be a little bit smaller. And yeah, I think that's not too bad. Yeah, I think that's not too bad. So I think I'm just going to keep it there and see how that goes. Okay, so I'm just going to undo that. And now I do need to put a fillet over here and here. But before I do that, I'm just going to put a fillet here, make sure that that one works. So if you see this picture over here, you see that it's a little bit tighter and it washes out quite a bit as it goes towards this side. So let's go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with 100 and see how that does. Why? Oh, because I didn't trim it. Trim that. Let's go ahead and put a surface fillet over here like this. 100. Okay, so something formed. I don't like the shape though. So I'm just going to say default over here. Oh, I think auto is good there. Looks like, I don't know why it extends all the way through, but that's okay. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a variable fillet. So this one over here is going to be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to say 200 over there. And this one over here, I should probably get it up to that point. So this one is going to be a little smaller. And let's see how that does. And unfortunately, it looks like that doesn't build. So I'm going to just change it up a little bit, maybe 150. If it doesn't build, of course, I'll have to do this manually. Okay, so I got something. It's not perfect. Looks like it's crunching a little bit. But it looks like it built something, so that's good. All right, so looking at that, that's actually looking pretty good. However, I'm starting to see a little bit baby butt over here. That's no good. Okay, so that's actually that's quite a big mistake. So now I'm going to cheat this a little bit, and I'm just going to take the okay, so I didn't even think about this. So what actually needs to happen is, well, there are a couple of things I can do. I can either bring this inboard a little bit, or I should, well, I think this one already has a decent amount of angle, so I don't think I really should touch that. So let's do this. I'm going to bring this inboard a little bit. Of course, that is going to break this a little bit, but like I said, I'm going to cheat a little bit and make this a little bit easier myself. So let's do this. So first of all, actually, you know what? I take that back. This actually needs to be flat because it's supposed to be supposed to like blend in as a surface. So this should actually be that flat. So let's give that a go and see how that does. So I'm just going to align this one. Actually, you know what? Before I do anything, I'm just going to copy and paste all the surfaces just in case. And I'm just going to put it on a different layer. I'm going to say whip 1, short for work in progress. And I'm just going to align this one over here. Now, what should actually happen is this should have probably be given a little bit of crown, but of course I made it that flat. I think that's one of the reasons for this. So I think I should actually, first of all, reduce the crown to 0, unfortunately. But in reality, there should be a little bit of crown. So let me just, I'm a little worried what's going to happen. Okay. So now it should be okay. So I do see I still do see a little bit of reversal going on over here. So in this case, what I need to do is I probably need to play around with this a little bit. Now, I really don't like playing locally, just doing local changes. But I think this one, because just a demo, I think I'm just going to make a slight change. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, let me just delete the construction history on this, and I'm going to shorten this a little bit. So I'm going to just try to keep the change local like this. And now I'm going to align this one back onto the curve. Blending will be on, but it will be extra zeros and 1. Blend factor 1, like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this CV over here. I'm just going to push it just a little bit until I can get rid of that. So let's see what happens. Now, I'm not sure what it's causing. Actually, you know what? I think it could be, well, that's the gen, so that shouldn't have any effect. I don't know what's causing a little slowdown over here. So let me just grab this a little bit more. I'm just going to push it in until I can get rid of that little reverse peak over there. So let it crunch. There we go. That's much better. Now there are a couple ways to check this if it's done properly. One of them is of course a visual, like this. And if you're not sure, what you can do is you can always, now I did make this into, separate this into two pieces because of that, but that's okay. What you can do is you can always do a surface continuity check. So if you see this one, you'll see the comb going over here. So right now the comb is going this way, but the comb over here is going the other way. So I think that's pretty good. Now, the last check I can do is I can always extend the surface too. So I'm just going to turn merge off and I'm just going to extend this surface. And if this surface is outboard, so let's do this. I'm just going to project this one over here. And you see that this is actually a little bit inboard of this surface. Now, if I'm trying to make a peak, that shouldn't be. This should actually be outboard, which means this is the target, and this surface should actually be inboard of the COS over here. So what I'm going to do is, again, grab the CV over here. I'm just going to push it in until I pass the mark just a little bit. Now this is not, this is actually not the best practice for doing a wheel flat, because that's if I'm just moving one CV, that's probably creating a little bit of an issue. It could create a little bit of weird highlight, but just for this, because I'm not going to spend entire day refining this, I think this should be okay. So you see a little bit of peak going all the way through and just washing out at the bottom, which I think is good. So yeah, not too bad over here. All right, so still a lot of things to do, but I think I think I'm definitely getting closer, so I'm happy with that. Actually, you know what? I think I'm just going to push this this one a little bit inboard too, just to make it a little bit more gradual. Oh, I don't want to do it that much. Just let that crunch a little bit. I don't know why the history is taking so long. I wonder if there's probably tie-in data over somewhere over here. Okay, so I'm just going to push that one just a little bit like that, just to make the peak a little bit stronger. Okay, so you see you read the peak from here to here, which I think is good. Yeah, I think the highlight's not too bad. All right, so I'm probably going to continue on with the build over here, but I think this is going to take a little bit more time, so we'll continue with that in part 3. All right, so that is it for part 2. We will of course continue on with the build. So see you next time. Want to learn more? Then become a member at 3ddesignacademy.com, where you will find hundreds of video tutorials ranging from basics, including car creations, intermediate level tutorials such as this wheel, all the way to Class A modeling of the interior car exterior. Interested? Visit 3ddesignacademy.com.